Hi, soulmates. Welcome to my channel. It's Needles by Tiara here. And on today's edition, I'll be taking you through the process of drafting an off shoulder bustier dress with a stylish waistline as displayed on the thumbnail. So, with me, I have my pattern paper, my measurements book, my calculator, my eraser, my pencil, my marker, my measurement tape, my scissors, and of course, my different pattern curves. So, without no further ado, let's dive right into it. So, with me, I have my pattern paper well laid out. So, please ensure to fold your pattern paper into two. It is very, very important and it is of necessity to go ahead to fold your pattern paper into two. So, which is exactly what I did here. Of course, I folded my pattern paper into two. So, for our beautiful beginners in the house, of course, I'll be teaching you the mathematical formula that you'd apply to get your accurate folding. So, now to get your folding, you'd have to look for the biggest part of your body's measurement. So, in this case, the biggest part of my body's measurement happens to be my hip. And of course, we'll be imputing that hip circumference or a quarter of our hip circumference at the full length of our blouse. Hence, the reason why we'll be working with the hip circumference as the biggest part of our bodies. So now the hip circumference, my hip circumference or my client's hip circumference in this case is 47 inches. 47 inches divided by 4 would leave us with the value of 11.75. So we'd go ahead to chalk down that value. So having done that, the next thing would be adding to that value is our underbust tightening. So the value of our underbust tightening length would most definitely be 2.5 inches. So you'd go ahead to add your side allowances. So you can either add 1 inch, 2 inch, it all depends on your preference. But in this case, I'd go ahead to add 2 inches as my side allowance. So having done that, we'll be adding up all the values together. So now, having added all the values, we're left with the value of 16.25. So 16.25 would most definitely be your folding. So the 16.25 accommodates both your that or your under bust tightening and of course your normal that. So at that folded point, I've gone ahead to chalk down or to fold my pattern paper by 16.25. But of course, we have a little excesses at that point, which I am very much okay with that. So, however, this is the folded part of our pattern paper. Please take note that is the folded edge of our pattern paper. So now moving on, at that point, would be coming down with the value of either 1 inch or 0.5 inch. So it all depends on you. Go down by 0.5 inch or 1 inch. So now I'll be using the value of 0.5 inch. And of course, I'll go ahead to chalk it down at all the points. So having done that, with the aid of our straight ruler, I'll be connecting all the points into a straight line. So please watch what I'm doing and go ahead to replicate same. It is very, very simple. So having done that, the next thing I'll do is to go in with my marker and label that point as my shoulder point, which is otherwise known as my off shoulder point line. So in that case, at the off shoulder point or the shoulder point line, I'll go ahead to impute the rest of my body's measurements. So remember, we're making an off shoulder dress. So you can take off an off shoulder value of 5 inches, 6 inches, 7 inches, and even down to 8 inches. It all depends on your preference. And the more you go in with the value, the more revealing your client's cleavage would be. But the less you go in with the value, the less revealing your client's cleavage would be. So the standard off shoulder point length ought to be 5 inches. So 5 inches is very, very much standard. But you can equally use 4 inches, but 5 inches is most definitely standard. It is not revealing and it is neither less revealing at the same time. So now for myself, I'll be using the value of 6 inches for my client's off shoulder point. So I'll be placing that 6 inches at my shoulder point line, which we marked out. So please take notes. place whatever value that you want to take off at that point. So either you're taking off 5 inches, place your 5 inches at the drawn out line point. So having done that, we'll go ahead to impute the rest of our vertical measurement, otherwise known as our point measurement. So placing my tape from the shoulder point line, I'll be taking off the 6 inches and I'll be marking down my bust point line. So my bust point line is 10.5 inches, which is exactly what I've gone ahead to mark. Then from that point again, so watch what I'm doing, placing my 6 inches at that point, which is my off shoulder, I'll be imputing my client's under bust point. So my client's under bust point in this case is 15 inches, which is exactly what I've gone ahead to mark out. So placing my tape at that point again, I'll be taking it back and forth just to get the acceleration of a straight line at that point. So now placing my 6 inches at that shoulder point, which is my off shoulder line, I'll be chalking down my client's front waist point. So emphasis on the front waist point. So please ensure to take your client's shoulder to front waist point and your client's shoulder to back waist point. It is very important and it's very, very necessary. So now placing my tape from my off shoulder point, which is my 6 inches at that point, I'll be imputing the value of my client's shoulder to full blouse length, which is exactly what I'm chalking down. Go ahead to chalk down whatever the value of yours is at that point. So I'm taking it all the way back and forth to get the acceleration of a straight line and to get all the points accurate. So now with the aid of my straight ruler, I'll be rolling all those points into a straight line. So please watch what I'm doing and go ahead to replicate them. So having done that for my bust, at my under bust point, I would go ahead to replicate them. And now at my front waist point, I would go ahead to roll out that line. And lastly, for my full front blouse length, I would go ahead to roll out that line as well. So having done this, with the aid of my marker, I'll be highlighting all the points. So that is my bust point, my under bust point, my waist point, and of course my full front blouse length. So emphasis on the full front blouse length and emphasis on the front waist point. So now at my shoulder point, which is my off shoulder point, I'll be imputing the value of my shoulder circumference. So whatever your client shoulder circumference is, at your off shoulder point, go ahead to divide that value by 2 and impute whatever you have at that point. So in this case, my client's shoulder circumference is 16 inches. I'll go ahead to divide the 16 inches into 2. So the value gotten at that point is 8 inches. So take note, on the off shoulder point, which is the folded part of my fabric, I'll be imputing at that point my 8 inches, which is half of my shoulder circumference. So having done that, the next thing we'll do is to determine our armhole depth. So the formula for determining our armhole depth or our chest point is by dividing your client's bust circumference by 6 and adding 1.5 inches. So my client's bust circumference in this case is 41 inches. I'll go ahead to divide it by 6 and I'll be adding the value of 1.5 inches. So whatever I have as the value, having done this, would most definitely be my chest point and of course my armhole depth. So now with the help of my calculator, having calculated that, we're left with the value of 8.3 inches. So it automatically means that 8.3 inches is my armhole depth and equally my chest point. So now placing my 6 inches, take notes, placing my 6 inches at that rollout line, which is our off shoulder point, I'll be imputing the value of 8.3 inches, which is my chest point and equally my armhole depth. So please watch what I'm doing. Go ahead to replicate. Say whatever value that you have gotten, go ahead to impute it at that point. So now with the aid of my straight ruler, I'll be rolling that point into a straight line, which would now become my chest point, or you could call it your armhole depth. So now with the aid of my marker, I'll be highlighting that point to be my chest point. So now at the shoulder point, which we imputed the value of 16 inches divided by 2, which left us with the value of 8 inches. So half of that your shoulder circumference divided by 2, you'd impute that same value on your chest point. So take note, you'll be imputing half of your shoulder circumference measurement at your chest point. So now with the aid of our straight ruler, I'll be connecting that point up to our off shoulder point line. So please watch what I'm doing. Go ahead to replicate same. It is very, very simple. So having done that, with the help of my marker, I'll be highlighting all the points. So having highlighted the points, the next thing we'd have to do is to get our armhole curve. So how to get the armhole curve is by imputing your client's bust circumference divided by 4 at your chest point. So now with the help of my calculator, my client's bust circumference is 41 divided by 4 would leave us with the value of 10.25. So take note, at my chest point, I'll be imputing the value of 10.25 being my client's bust circumference divided by 4. So whatever the value of yours is, please go ahead to mark it down. So having done that, with the help of my armhole curve, I'll be connecting from that point into my shoulder point. So please watch what I'm doing and go ahead to replicate same. It is very, very simple. So having imputed that point, the next thing would go ahead to impute would be our dart line. So now to get our dart line, would have to impute the value of our client's nipple to nipple or our bust span divided by 2. So in this case, my client's nipple to nipple or bust span is 9 inches. I would go ahead to divide that value into 2. Having done that, I'm left with the value of 4.5 inches. So take note, at my bust point, not at my chest point. On my bust point, I'll go ahead to impute that value. At my under bust, I'll go ahead to replicate same. On my waist point, I'll chalk down the same value. And of course, at my full front blouse length, I'll go ahead to impute that same value as well. So having done that, with the aid of my straight ruler, I'll be connecting those points into each other to form a straight line. So please ensure that all points meet and go ahead to connect it into a straight line. So having done that, at our under bust point, we'll be imputing our under bust tightening. So now please pay attention. At your under bust tightening, for a busty client, before we do that, I would go ahead to label my pattern paper. So that point is my center front and that point is my side front. So take note, my center front and my side front. So now, like I said, for a busty person or a busty client, you'd be imputing the value of 1.5 inches at your side front. Take note. And at your center front, would be imputing the value of 1 inch. Again, for a busty client, you'd use the value of 1.5 inch at your side front and 1 inch at your center front. So now for a less busty client, you will be imputing the value of 1 inch at the side front and 1 inch at the center front. So now in this case, my client is on a busty side, hence at the side front would be using the value of 1.5 inch and at the center front will be imputing the value of 1 inch. So please watch what I'm doing and go ahead to replicate same, all depending on how less busty or how busty your client is. So at my side front, I've gone ahead to impute the value of 1.5 inch. And for my center front, I would go ahead to impute the value of 1 inch. So having done that, whatever value that I have at both the center front and at the side front at my underbust point, I'll take that same value down to my waist and to my full blouse length. So watch what I'm doing and please go ahead to replicate same. So now I'm taking the same value I have at my side front to my full blouse length. So now for my center front, I'll be taking that same value to my waist and now to my full blouse length. So having done that, with the aid of our straight ruler, I'll be connecting those points into each other to form a straight line. So please watch what I'm doing and go ahead to replicate same. Like I said, it is very simple. So we've perfectly connected our underbust tightening. So now the next thing we'd have to do is to impute our underbust curve. But before we do that, at our shoulder point, which is our off shoulder point line, would have to impute the value of our client nipple to nipple divided by 2. So like I said, mine is 9 inches divided by 2 would leave us with the value of 4.5 inches. So whatever I have at that point, I'll be imputing it at my off shoulder point, which is exactly what I'm doing here. I'll be imputing that same value. And of course, I'll be imputing that same value at our chest point. So having done that, with the aid of our straight ruler, would be connecting those lines into each other to form a straight line. So now, to our overbust tightening, I need you to understand something. Like I said, we took off the value of 6 inches. So yours could be 5 inches or thereabouts. So now, for a client who is on a busty side, you'll be imputing the value of 0.75 at the center front and at the side front of your overbust point, which is equally known as your off shoulder point. So if your client is not on a busty side, you'd be using a value of 0.5 inch at both the center front and at the side front. So now my client is on a busty side, hence I'll be using the value of 0.5 inch at both the center front and at the side front of my overbust, or you could call it my off shoulder point line. So I've gone ahead to impute that 0.75 inch. And now at our bust point, to eliminate every pointiness or sharp point, would be coming down with the value of 1 inch. So now at your bust point, go ahead to place your tape at your bust point and come down with the value of 1 inch. So this is very important and it is a necessity, hence the reason why you'd have to do this. So now with the help of my curve ruler, I'll be connecting from that 1.5 inch at my side front into my 1 inch, which we came down at our bust point. And of course, I'll replicate same at the side front. So for the sake of my amazing sewmates who do not have a curve ruler, I'll be using my free hand to experiment this and show you that it is very much possible to connect or to get a perfect curve with or without a curve ruler. So please watch what I'm doing and go ahead to replicate same. It is very simple. Draw from your 1.5 inch or your 1 inch at your side front into the 1 inch point you came down with at your bust point. So please watch what I'm doing and go ahead to replicate same. So please ensure that you blend it properly and you have a very sweet curve at that point. So now at my center front, I'll go ahead to replicate same. So please watch what I'm doing and go ahead to replicate same. So ensure that you have a very perfect and sweet curve at that point, both at your side front and of course at your center front. So having done that, I would reblend this part, which is my side front. So having done that, we've successfully imputed our underbust tightening. Now to our overbust tightening of 0.75, or maybe yours could be 0.5 inch. So now I'll be connecting from that point into the bust point. Please take note, you'd have to connect it into your bust point. Do not exceed the bust point. All your connection from your over bust, that should stop at your bust point. So please watch what I'm doing. With the help of my curve ruler, I'll be connecting it into the bust point. So please pay close attention. You most definitely get it right. So now I've done my connection for my side front, my center front rather. Now I'll go ahead to impute the same at my side front. So watch what I'm doing. I'll connect it into our bust point. So please, all your measurements should stop at your bust point. Do not exceed the bust point. So having done this, we've successfully imputed both our under bust tightening and our over bust tightening. So now with the help of my marker, I'll be highlighting all the points. So this is entirely optional. I'm doing this to make every part of it clearly bold and visible. Hence the reason why I'm doing this. So now we've successfully connected all the points. So we'll be blending that point into each other. So having done this, we've successfully imputed our over bust and our under bust tightening. Next thing we'd be doing at this point is to impute our horizontal measurements, otherwise known as our circumference measurements. So starting from our bust point, on our bust point, we'll be dividing our client bust circumference by 4. Whatever the value of it is, would go ahead to impute it at our bust point. So I have the value of 10.25. I'd go ahead to impute the 10.25 at my bust point. And of course, at my chest point, I'll go ahead to impute the same value which we initially did. And now to our under bust point, we'd be dividing the value of our client's under bust point by 4. So having done that, I'm left with the value of 8.75. So at my under bust point, take note, I'll be imputing the 8.75, which is my under bust circumference divided by 4. So I'll be chalking down that value. And now to our waist point. My client's waist point is 37 inches divided by 4 would leave us with the value of 9.25. So at our waist point, we'll be imputing the value of 9.25. So please go ahead to divide whatever your client's waist point circumference is and impute the value at your waist point. And now at your full blouse length, please take note, would be imputing the value of our hip circumference. So my client's hip circumference is 47 divided by 4 would leave us with the value of 11.75. So at my full front blouse length, I'll be imputing 11.75 at that point. So now before we connect all the points into each other, you'd notice all the dots that we have that point at each point would have to replace it. So now starting at our under bust, or starting from our under bust, would have to replace the dots. I've gone ahead to measure it, so I'm left with the value of 2.25. So now I'll replace it at the side. So same thing goes for the waist. We'd measure our darts length, and of course we replace it on the side, which is exactly what I'm doing. And now at our hip point, which is our full blouse length, where we imputed our hip circumference divided by 4, would go ahead to replace our dart at that point as well. So with my straight ruler, I'll be extending that point at my full front blouse length, which is exactly what I'm doing. So now to our upper bust tightening, would have to replace the dart at that point. So watch what I'm doing and watch the darts that I'll be measuring. So at that particular point, I have a dart length or dart leg of 0.75, which I've gone ahead to replace at my chest point and of course at my bust point as well. So having done that, with the aid of both our straight ruler and our curve ruler, we'll be connecting all the points into each other. So now using my straight ruler, I'll be connecting from my chest point into my under bust point, and of course with my curve ruler, slightly curved ruler to be precise. I'll be connecting from my waist to my full blouse length. So please watch what I'm doing and go ahead to replicate same. It is very simple and I trust you on this. So now I'll be blending from my waist point into my underbust point. So please watch what I'm doing. Go ahead to replicate same. So now with the aid of my armhole curve, at the 0.5 inch we replaced as the dart at the chest point would be reconnecting from our shoulder, half of our shoulders circumference point into that 0.75 inch, which is the dart that we replace at our chest point. So please watch what I'm doing and go ahead to replicate same. So having done this, we've successfully drafted our front bodies. So now at the full length of our blouse, at the side, which we imputed our hip circumference divided by 4, you'd come up by 1 inch. So now at that point, come up by 1 inch, which is exactly what I'm doing at that point now. Mark down the value. Having done that, with the aid of our slightly curved ruler, I'll be blending from that point into the dart line at the side front. So please watch what I'll be doing and go ahead to replicate same. So with this, we've successfully installed our sweet style line at the sides of our body. So now the next thing we'd be doing is to determine the depth of our sweetheart neckline. So now you can even use the value of your bust point as your sweetheart deepening or sweetheart depth, or you can come up by 1 inch, 1.5 inch, even 2 inches. It all depends on your preference. So for myself, my client doesn't want her cleavage to be revealing. Hence, at my chest point, I'll be coming down by 0.5 inch. So this is just in between. It will not be too revealing and it would not be entirely covered. So now with the aid of my curve ruler rather, I'll be connecting from that point into the 0.5 inch I came down with at my shoulder point. So please watch the way I'm placing my curve ruler and go ahead to replicate same. So now we've successfully imputed our sweetheart neckline. So now at that point, you'd either leave it straight or you could make a curve at that point. So for those of you who would not be making any curve, I'll just go ahead to outline that point, which will be straight. With the aid of my marker, I'll be making strokes at my overbust dart point and at my underbust dart point. So at every shaded part of our pattern paper, would go ahead to cut it off. So at the side, I'll be shading those parts off as well. So now bringing back our fresh pattern paper, we've successfully drafted our front bodies, but there's a very important and most essential part of this pattern. So the next thing now we'll be doing is to impute our side dart. So now, what is your side dart and how do you determine your side dart? So your side dart is the difference between your shoulder to your front waist point and your shoulder to your back waist point. So I've gone ahead to write down my shoulder to my front waist point and of course my shoulder to my back waist point. So having done that, in this case, my client's shoulder to front waist point is 18 inches and my client's shoulder to back waist point is 16 inches at the back. So 18 inches at the front and 16 inches at the back. So please take note. It is shoulder to front waist point, which is 18 at the front and 16 at the back. So now to get your side dart, you would have to subtract the value of your front waist point from your back waist point. So that is how to determine, or that is the formula to determining your side dart. So subtracting 18 from 16 would leave us with the value of 2 inches. So having gotten that value, 2 inches automatically becomes our side dart. So please get your client shoulder to front waist point and your client shoulder to back waist point. Whatever the value of it is, go ahead to subtract it from each other. Whatever the value gotten is would automatically become your side dart. And please take note, your side dart is only imputed at your front bodies. That is because at our front bodies, there is a presence of the bust or the boobs, but at our back bodies, we do not have the presence of any bust or any boobs. So hence the reason we'll be imputing it only at our front bodies. So now take note, at our waist, at our bust point line, I'll be going down with the value, which is the difference between my front waist point and my back waist point. So now the value gotten like we initially calculated is 2 inches. So now at our bust point, which is that rollout line, I'll be coming down at the sides by 2 inches. So please come down with whatever value that you have. Yours could be 1 inch, it could be 1.5, it could even be 0.75. Whatever it is, go ahead to chalk it down at the side. So having gotten that value, with the aid of my straight ruler, I'll be connecting from the 2 inches side dart into my bust point line. So please watch what I'm doing and go ahead to replicate same. It is very, very simple. So having done this, I've successfully installed my side darts. So now I'll be shedding that part off, which is exactly what I'm doing. So now the next thing we'll do is we'll go ahead to cut off all the parts. So now watch what I'll be doing. I'll be taking off all the darts at all the given points. So any shaded parts of this pattern paper would be taking off those darts. So please watch what I'll be doing. So at my full blouse length, I'll be cutting through the line. And now at my starting line, which is my off shoulder point, I'll be cutting through that line as well. And now at our sweetheart deepening neckline, I would go ahead to cut through that point following the curves. So please ensure to follow all the curves. Where you have a straight line, follow suit. Where you have a curved line, go ahead to follow suit as well. So now I'll be cutting through following all the curves and the straight line at any given point. So ensure as you're cutting through, you do not add any excesses at any given point. Go ahead to cut exactly at every given curve and at every given line. So now at my underbust, I'll be cutting through into that line. So I'll be taking off the dart at that point, which is exactly what I'll be doing now. Please go ahead to replicate same. So with this, we've successfully cut off our center front. So I'll keep that aside and we'll be moving back to the side front. So now I'll be following the dart leg and I'll be cutting it through. So like I said, ensure to not add any excesses at any given point, but rather cut through following all the lines that we initially drew. So please watch what I'm doing and go ahead to replicate same. So now at that bust under bust point, I'll be taking it all the way down. So now we've successfully taken off our side dart at both our center front and at our side bodies. So now the next thing we'd do is would be cutting through following that curved line. So please watch what I'm doing and go ahead to replicate same. So now take note. Having cut into that point would not be following through the main line, but rather would be adding some excesses at that point. So please ensure to add some excesses at that point and do not cut it exactly at the star line that we drew. So you'd get to understand the reason why we did what I said you should do at this point. So just go ahead to add some extra allowances at that point. Do not cut it exactly on the star line, following the curves and the pattern. So just add some excesses at every given point. You'd get to understand the reason why we did that. So now flipping back our pattern paper to this other side to get a clearer view and a better view. With the aid of our straight ruler, I'll be extending my darts, my side darts into the excess allowance that we have at that point. So having done this, we have two options of either overlapping the side darts to eliminate it, or you slash through the side dart point and overlap it on each other to eliminate the side darts. So now my preference is slashing through the point. So take note, you'll be slashing through the 2 inches or 1 inch you came down with, which is your side dart. It all depends on what you got as the value. So slash it from that line and not on your bust point. So now as you're slashing, ensure that you do not detach the upper bodies from the lower bodies, but slash it very close to detaching it from each other, which is exactly what I'll be doing at this point. So ensure you do not detach it from each other. Make it slightly close to detaching it from each other. So now you'll be taking that the lower bodies or the lower part of the side dart into your bust point. So watch what I'm doing. I'll take it from the downside and overlap it on our bust point. So at your bust point, go ahead to overlap it. So now I'll be pinning this down and I'll be maxing it with my maxing tape. So now you have an option of either using your maxing tape to hold it down, or if you have a water gum, go ahead to use it to hold it down as well. So now I have my maxing tape with me and I'll be taping it down. So please ensure that you overlap it on your bust point to eliminate the side dart, which is exactly what I did. So the excesses I have at that point, I'll go ahead to cut it off. So having done that, I have some excess solo tape at that point. I'll be cutting it off as well. So having done this, you could see the reason why I said you should add some few inches extra to the side bodies and not cutting exactly at the point which we initially drew. So you could see the shortage at that point. So to augment for that shortage, we'd have to blend with the aid of our straight ruler from our under bust point into our chest point. So watch what I'm doing and please go ahead to replicate same. So with this, the shortage at that side has been properly replaced or blended. So which is exactly what I did. So now with the aid of our scissors, I'll be cutting through, following all the outline lines and curves. So please watch what I'll be doing. I'll be taking off the 1 inch star line that we imputed at that point, which is exactly what I'm doing. And now I'll be cutting off, following all the lines and the curves. So please watch what I'm doing and go ahead to replicate same. It is very simple and I trust you on this. So now I'll be following the rollout line, which we initially imputed at that point. And of course, I'll be taking this off. So please take note. If on your bust point or at your bust point, you have any pointiness or any sharp point at that point, you'd most definitely have to go in with your curve ruler and eliminate every pointiness at your bust point because our bust point isn't required to be pointy at any given time. So now, like I said, if you follow through my procedurals up to this point, you most definitely get it right. And of course, from the end result that we've gotten at this point, you could see how perfect the curve is without any pointiness at the bust point. So now at the off shoulder point, you'd have an option, like I said, of either leaving it straight at that point or you could make a curve. So now I'll be going in with my curve ruler to make a sweet curve at that point. So please watch what I'm doing and go ahead to replicate same. So you could leave yours straight or you could make this sweet curve. So it will most definitely add to the beauty and it will give you a replica of what you're seeing displayed on the thumbnail. So having done that, with the aid of our scissors, we'll be cutting through the point. We'll be taking off the little excess that we have at that point to get the curve. So please go ahead to replicate same if you want a curve or if you want a exact replica of what you're seeing displayed on the thumbnail. So now I'll bring my center front and my side front together. So let's see how perfect and how beautiful this came out. So you could see it is perfect beyond perfection. So trust me when I say, if you've gotten this as your end result, you're most certainly on the right track. So now I'll go ahead to open up my center front and my side front. So which is exactly what I did at this point. So please pay attention. Now, bringing back my center front and my side front. So we'd go ahead to match up the under bust at both the side front and at the center front together. But before we do that, I'll go ahead to roll out that my under bust line. I'll be extending that line into the other side of my center front. And of course, I'll be rolling out my waist point line as well. And at the other part of my side front, I'll go ahead to draw out a line, which would be my waist point. And of course, I'll be reconnecting this point to just make it clearly bold and visible. So having done this, so please, like I said, you have to pay utmost attention to this point. So now at my center front, which is the middle of this pattern, I'll be matching up my side front from my under bust to my under bust. So watch what I'm doing. Under bust to under bust at the center front and at the side front. Waist point to waist point at both the side front and at the center front. So please ensure not to overlap this on each other. So just place it side by side and ensure that both points meet. So having done this, we'd go in with our solo tape to tape it down. So please, like I said, do not overlap this on each other. Just ensure that both points meet at the under bust and at the waist point and of course the full length, and go ahead to match it up together without overlapping it on each other. So just watch what I'm doing and go ahead to replicate same. So I'm trying to ensure that it matches perfectly without overlapping it on each other. So now we've perfectly taped down this point. So I'll be cutting off the extra or the excess um, solo tape that we have at that point. So now to the other parts, I'll go ahead to replicate same like I did with this other part of our center front and our side front. So now bringing up the points together, would be matching up the under bust to the under bust at both the center front and at the side front, and we'll be matching up the waist point to the waist point at both the center front and at the side front. So that's my under bust and that is my waist point. So we'll be matching it up together. Like I said, please do not overlap it on each other. So now I've taped both the center front and at the side front at both the left and the right hand side together. So now we'd go ahead. You could see how perfect it all blends both at the waist point, at the under bust, and of course at the full blouse length. So this is exactly what you expected to get at this point. So now we'd go ahead to draw out the asymmetric waistline that we have displayed on the thumbnail. So now take note. So you could see that the asymmetric waistline, the most curviest part is placed on the left hand side and the less curvy part is placed on the right hand side. So now we'd have to label our pattern paper. So that is my right hand side and of course that is my left hand side. So the left hand side is where the curve is imputed, and the right hand side is where we do not have a curve. So please watch what I'll be doing, because I would have to go ahead to flip this pattern. So having flipped my pattern, so like I said initially, this is the left hand side of our fabric, which we earlier indicated, and this is the right hand side of our pattern. So having done that, like we said, the left hand side will carry the broad and elaborate curve, while the right hand side would not have any elaborate curve. So now at the side fronts, so take note, at the side front at both the left and the right hand side, we'll be coming up with the value of 0.5 inch. So please watch what I'm doing. I'll go ahead to come up by 0.5 inch. Please pay keen attention. So now at that point, which is the center front and the side front of our right hand side front, please take note. I'll be coming up with the value of 3 inches. So this is to serve as a guide. So at that point, I'll be coming up by 3 inches. All this is happening at the left hand side because the left hand side has no curve. So now, having done this, like I said, come up by 3 inches at that point, which is exactly what I did. So with the aid of my marker, I'll be highlighting the point we initially did, which was the 0.5 inch at the left hand side and at the right hand side of our side front. So now please pay attention, like I said. Now at the 0.5 at the left hand side, you came up at the left hand side of your side front. Please go ahead to blend that 0.5 inch, just like the way I'm doing. So please watch what I'm doing and go ahead to replicate same. So now that is the midpoint that connects the center front to the side front at the left hand side, which is exactly the reason why I had to indicate that point with the aid of my marker. So from that point, I'll be coming in by 3.5 inches. So coming by 3.5 inches, which is exactly the midpoint of your center front. So having done that, I'll be connecting it into that point. And now from that point, I'll be blending it all the way up to the 3 inches we came up with at our side fronts at the right hand side. So please just watch what I'm doing and go ahead to replicate same. I'm just trying to play around with this to get a perfect curve. So at that point, you'd connect it into the 0.5 inch you came up with at that point. So please watch what I'll be doing and go ahead to replicate same. There is no specific formula for getting this. So now, like I said, I'll be blending all those points into each other. So having done that, like I said, you connect from that 3 inches point into the 0.5 inch at that side. So now with the help of my marker, I'll be highlighting the point. So please pay attention to what I'll be doing. So I'll be using my slightly curved ruler to outline the points I initially marked with our pencil. So I would ensure that all the points meet properly. And of course, I would be highlighting it with the aid of my marker. So having done that at that point, so I'll be using my free hand to connect it all the way to the other side of our pattern paper. So following the drawn out line, which we initially did with our pencil, I'll be following the curves. And now I'll be blending from that point into the 3 inches line, which we came up with at that point. So this is perfect, beautiful, and excellent. However, I'll be doing some alteration. So just watch closely. You'd most definitely get it right. So having gotten that shape, I'll go in with my scissors and cut through following the curved lines. So please ensure to follow the curves and cut it through. So this curve at this point is perfect, but we have to make it more elaborate and bold, just as we've seen displayed on the thumbnail. So now I would go in with my extra sheet or my plain pattern paper, and with my masking tape, I'll be taping it all the way down. So now I'll go in with my masking tape and tape it all the way down. So please go ahead and replicate same at that point. So like I said, all the curves is only imputed at the left hand side, but at the right hand side of your fabric, we won't be having any curve. So at that point, I'll be coming down with the value of 1 inch. So now with the aid of our straight ruler, we'll be connecting that point into a straight line, which is exactly what I did. And now at that point, which is the joining point between the side front and at the center front, we'll be extending that line all the way down. So that is to get a straight line at that point. So now with the aid of my marker, I'll be highlighting this point to make it clearly bold and visible. Having done that, so please pay attention. I'll be reconnecting from that point and I'll be smoothing it into the 1 inch we came down with at that midpoint. So please watch the way I'm placing my curve ruler and go ahead to replicate same. So now I'll be using my free hand to connect it or to blend it into those points. So please just watch what I'm doing and go ahead to replicate same. It is very simple. So now I would go in with my pencil to first of all connect the curve and get a perfect curve before highlighting it with my marker. So having done that, I'm satisfied with the end result. So I'll go ahead to highlight those points that I initially drew with my marker, which is exactly what I'm doing. So please go ahead to replicate same. So with this, we have that point very elaborate and incredibly amazing. So that would give you a perfect style line for that point, and that will give you exactly what is replicated, exactly what is displayed on your thumbnail. So if you want that same end result, you would have to go ahead to replicate exactly what I'm doing at this point. So having done that, we've drawn out our curve, and now I'll be flipping it. So flipping it to this part would have to detach it from each other. Hence the reason why I said you shouldn't overlap it on each other. So I'll be using my scissors to cut through the points following the straight line. And that is because I did not overlap it on each other. Hence the reason why I am doing this. So if you had overlapped it on each other, you most definitely cut into the main bodies. So that's the more reason why I said you shouldn't overlap it on each other. Rather, place it side by side and go ahead to tape it down. So I've detached this part, so I'll keep it aside and I'll go ahead to replicate same at that point. But before I do that, I would go ahead to use my straight ruler and of course my marker to outline that point. So you know that we have an excess at that point which we added to our bodies. So we'd have to roll out a straight line that would accommodate both the lower side and the main bodies. So please just watch what I'm doing and go ahead to replicate same. Having done that, I'll be splitting it into two, separating the center fronts from the side fronts. So I'll stop at my under bust and I'll be detaching it from each other, cutting through the tape, which is exactly what I did at that point. So now I have some excess at that point. I'll go ahead to trim it off. So at that point as well, I'll be taking off the solo tape or the maxing tape at that point, which is exactly what I'm doing now. This would be your end result if you've gotten it right. This is perfect. So you could see all the curves and all the points blend. It blends perfectly. So at that point, you could see how it blends perfectly, both at the center front and at the side front, at both the right hand side and at the left hand side. So now we'd move on to the back bodies. So just like we did with the front bodies, we'll be coming down with the value of 0.5 inch, which will serve as our off shoulder line, or you could call it your shoulder line. So having done that, with the aid of my straight ruler, I'll be connecting that point into a straight line, which is exactly what I'm doing. So please go ahead to replicate it. So now I'll be highlighting that point to be my off shoulder point or my shoulder point line. So for our back bodies, would most certainly impute a zipper. So for that reason, would have to add the zipper allowance. So you can either use the value of 2 inches, 1.5 inches, 1 inch, 0.75, or even 0.5 inch. It all depends on your preference. So in this case, I'll be using a value of 1.5 inches as my zipper allowance. So at that point, I'll be imputing the 1.5 inches, which is exactly what I'm doing now, and I'll be taking it all the way down. So please go ahead to replicate same. It is very simple. So now with the aid of my straight ruler, I'll be connecting those points into each other to form a straight line. So having done that, with the aid of my marker, I'll be highlighting all the points. So this is entirely optional. This is just to make all the points clearly bold and visible. So having done that, I'll be highlighting that point to be my zipper allowance. So that's my zipper point. So now, just like we did with the front bodies, we'd go ahead to impute the value of our off shoulder point. So you could use the value of 6 inches, which I initially used for our front bodies, or you could go in with the value of 7 inches, 8 inches. It all depends on your preference, but whatever value you're using shouldn't surpass your chest point line or your armhole depth. So now I'll be using, for myself, I'll personally be using a value of 7 inches. So if you had used 5 inches as your front bodies, you could go ahead to use 6 inches as your shoulder, as your off shoulder point for your back bodies. So now, like I said, I use 6 inches for my front bodies as my off shoulder point. So I'll be using 7 inches as my off shoulder point for my back bodies. So from that point, I'll be imputing my client's bust point, which is 10.5 inches. So ensure that you place your tape from that point, take off your 7 inches, take off your 6 inches. It all depends on your preference, like I said. So you can either maintain the value or you can go in more with the value. So now I'm placing my tape at the 7 inches, which is on the off shoulder point at my back bodies. I'll be imputing my client's under bust point. So mine is 15 inches. I would go ahead to impute that value. So now before we proceed on, I'll go ahead to bring back the initial calculation that we did. So now bringing back this part, Like I said, my shoulder to front waist point is 18 inches and my shoulder to back waist point is 16 inches. So you could see it automatically means for my back bodies, my shoulder to back waist point would be 16 inches and not 18 inches. So that's 18 inches is for the front bodies and 16 inches is for my back bodies. So this is the more reason why you'd have to take your client's shoulder to front waist point and your client's shoulder to back waist point. It is very important and of a necessity. So having done that, now still bringing back that calculation that we initially did, at the full length of our blouse, remember, for the front bodies, we took off the 2 inches, which is the side dart. So once we've taken off the 2 inches, it will automatically shortened our front bodies. So hence our back bodies would equally have to be shortened. So for to achieve that, would have to impute our shoulder to our front body's blouse length. So I used the value of 25 inches as my shoulder to front blouse length. So now I'll be subtracting the 2 inches, which is the side dart which we eliminated at the front bodies, from the full front blouse length. So having done that, so 25 inches being my full front blouse length minus 2 inches being my side dart. So the 25 inches being my full blouse length at my front bodies minus 2 inches, which is my side dart, would leave us with the value of 23 inches. So it automatically means that 23 inches becomes my back blouse length. So my full back blouse length from my shoulder to my back blouse length will be 23 inches and not 25 inches as we initially imputed at the front bodies. And mind you, the 23 inches would most definitely be the same at the front bodies at the side. Reason being that we eliminated the 2 inches, which is our side dart, and of course, we imputed that side dart only at our front bodies. So it means once we impute this 23 inches, would have a full blouse length of 23 inches at our front waist point, at our front full blouse length, and at our back blouse length. So you most definitely see that both the front and the back would most definitely correspond. So because we do not have the intake of a dart at the back, hence the reason why we would have to subtract it from our full blouse length instead of taking it off from the side dart. Like I said, the side dart is only imputed at our front bodies. I hope you do understand, and in case you have any question, please ensure to use the comment section. I'll be more than willing to answer all of your questions. So now with the aid of my straight ruler, at my bust point, would have to draw out a straight line. So please ensure that your straight line doesn't exceed the line that demarcates the zipper from the main body. So just watch what I'm doing and go ahead to replicate same. It is very, very simple. So now at our back waist point, I would go ahead to roll out a straight line. And now for our back blouse length, I would go out to roll out a straight line as well. So having done that, I would have to label all the points. So that's my bust point, that is my under bust, that is my waist, and of course my full back blouse length. So having done this, please pay attention. At your off shoulder point, which is the starting line, you're required to divide your client's back chest circumference by 2. So now if you've not taken your client's chest circumference or your client's back chest circumference to be precise, there is a formula that you can use to ascertain this. So now in this case, mine is 12 inches. I'll be dividing that 12 inches by 2, which will leave us with the value of 6 inches. So at my off shoulder point, which is my starting line, I'll be imputing the 6 inches, which is my half of my chest circumference, back chest circumference to be precise, divided by 2. So, like I said, if you've not taken this measurement, this is how you'd go about it. So, this is how to determine your back chest circumference. Emphasis on your back chest circumference, not at your back chest point, your back chest circumference. So, please pay attention. So, having done this, this is the mathematical formula to ascertaining your back chest circumference. You'd have to get your shoulder circumference first. So, my shoulder circumference in this case is 16 inches. I'll be dividing the 16 inches by 2. So, now bringing our calculator, would go ahead to divide that equation. So, 16 inches divided by 2 would leave us with the value of 8 inches. So 8 inches is half of our shoulder circumference divided by 2. So now we'd go ahead to subtract 2 inches from the 8 inches that we initially got. So having done that would leave us with the value of 6 inches. So that was how I got my 6 inches, which is now my client's back chest circumference. So I took the measurements, but however, if you've not taken your measurements, you can go ahead to inculcate this formula and you most certainly get it right. So this work for both the front chest circumference and your back chest circumference. So having done this, would have to keep this aside. However, to get your full chest circumference, you times what you have at that point by 2. So 6 inches, which is half of my chest circumference, back chest circumference, times 2 would leave us with the value of 12 inches. So 12 inches is my full back chest circumference. So at that point, we'll be imputing half of my full back chest circumference. So which is 12 divided by 2, and that would be 6 inches. So following the line that demarcates the zipper allowance from the main body, take note, at my off shoulder point, I'll be imputing that value. So now, just like we did with the front, the next thing we'd go ahead to do is to determine our chest point, or otherwise known as our armhole point. So how to determine it, just like we did with the front, is to divide your client's bust circumference by 6 and adding 1.5 inches, whatever the value gotten is, would automatically become your client chest point, or you could call it your client armhole point. So now I'm placing my tape from the 7 inches at my off shoulder point. I'll be imputing the value of 8.3 inches, which is my own value, having inculcated the formula that we initially stated. So now with the aid of my straight ruler, I'll be rolling that point into a straight line. So now with the help of my marker, I'll be highlighting the point. So but before we do that, whatever value that you have at your chest point, which is half of your chest, your client chest circumference divided by 2, go ahead to mark that same value at your chest point. So I've gone ahead to highlight. So now with the aid of my straight ruler, I'll be connecting it into my chest point. So having done that, to get the curve, or how to, connect it into that point, would need to impute our client's bust circumference divided by 4. So minus 41 divided by 4 would leave us with the value of 10.25. So please take note, at my chest point, on my chest point in this case, following the line that demarcates the zipper from the main bodies, I'll be imputing 10.25, which is 3/4 of my client's bust circumference. So having done that, we could either use a slightly curved ruler to connect that point into our off shoulder point line, or we could either use a straight ruler to do this. So let's try it out with a curved ruler. So having done this, we've gotten our perfect curve at that point. But now, just like we did with the front bodies, we'd go ahead to impute our dart. So now your dart line would be you dividing your client's nipple to nipple by 2. So mine was 9.9 inches. I would go ahead to divide it into 2. That would leave me with the value of 4.5 inches. So at my bust point, take note, on your bust point, following the line that demarcates your zipper allowance from your main bodies, chalk down half of your nipple to nipple, or your client's nipple to nipple divided by 2. Whatever the value of it is, chalk it down on your bust point, at your under bust, on your waist, and of course your full back blouse length, which is exactly what I'm doing at that point. Having done that, with the aid of my straight ruler, I'll be connecting all those points into each other to form a straight line. So please just watch what I'm doing and go ahead to replicate same. It is very, very simple. So having done this, would be imputing our normal body start. So our normal body start leg length is 1 inch. So we'll be dividing that 1 inch by 2, which is exactly what I'm doing at this point. That will leave me with the value of 0.5 inch. So at my waist point, on the line that demarcates the center front from the side front, and of course, I would have to go ahead to highlight this point. So this is my center front and this is my side front. So back to my waist point, like we said, the 0.5 inch we have as that at that point would impute it on both the center front and at the side front of our dart leg on our waist point. So please watch what I'm doing and go ahead to replicate same. So now before we go ahead to connect this into our bust point, we'd have to determine our dart length or our dart leg. So usually for a blouse, our blouse dart length or our blouse dart leg is usually not greater than 6 inches and it is usually not lesser than 4 inches. So it ranges between 4 inches to 6 inches. So you can either use 4 inches, 4.5, 5 inches, 5.5, or the 6 inches. So you could use the value in between the 4 to 6 inches, just as indicated. So now for myself or for my clients, I'll be imputing the value of 4.5 inches at my waist point. So placing my tape from my waist point, I'll be chalking down the value of 4.5 inches, which will be my dart leg or which will be my dart length. So having done that, with the aid of my straight ruler, I'll be connecting from that point up to my bust point on both the center front and at the side front at my waist point. So now we'll be connecting that point into the dart leg of 4.5 inch, which we came down with at our waist point. So please watch what I'm doing and go ahead to replicate same. It is very, very simple. So now we'd go ahead to connect it into the 4.5 inches we came down with, which is our dart leg or our dart length. So now we've successfully imputed our darts. So now the next thing is to impute our circumference measurement, otherwise known as our horizontal measurement. So now starting from the bust point, the under bust, the waist, and of course our full back blouse length would impute the value. So my client's bust point is 41 divided by 4 will leave us with the value of 10.25. So at our bust point, following the line that demarcates the zipper allowance from the main bodies, I'll be chalking down 10.25, which is my bust circumference divided by 4. Now at my under busts, I would go ahead to divide my client's under bust circumference, which is 35 divided by 4 will leave us with the value of 8.75. So go ahead to divide your client's under bust circumference divided by 4 and impute whatever value you have at your under bust point. So now at my waist point, my client's waist point is 37 divided by 4 would leave us with the value of 9.25. So at my waist point, please take note. Following the line that demarcates the zipper from the main bodies, I'll be chalking down my 9.25. And now for my full back blouse length, I'll be imputing my client's hip circumference divided by 4. My client's hip circumference here is 47 divided by 4 would leave us with the value of 11.75. So at my full blouse length, I'll be imputing the value of 11.75, following the line that demarcates the zipper from the main bodice. So having done that, before we connect all the points into each other, we would have to replace the dart at any given point. So at our waist, we have a dart, so we'd go ahead to measure it. We have a dart value of 1 inch. So at the sides, we would replace it at that point. And now for our under bust, we'd go ahead to measure it. And of course, we'd go ahead to replace it at that point as well. Having done that, with the aid of both my slightly curved ruler and straight ruler, I'll be connecting all the points into each other. So please watch what I'm doing and go ahead to replicate same. So now I'll be extending that bust line. And now with the aid of my straight ruler, I'll be connecting from my bust to my under bust point. So please watch what I'm doing. Go ahead to replicate same. Now I'll be blending from my hip point into my under bust point, following the curves line. So having done this, we've successfully drafted our back bodies. So now just like we did with the front, so if you had imputed or if you had come out with the value of 1 inch at that point, you would have to replicate same at the back bodies. But if your front bodies was entirely straight, you'd have to like discard this point. So like I said, you have to come up by 1 inch at that point, which we did at our front bodies. So we'd go ahead to replicate same at our back bodies. And we'll connect from that point into our dart line with the aid of our slightly curved ruler. So please watch what I'm doing and go ahead to replicate same. It is very, very simple. So having done this, we've successfully imputed all of our darts. So the next thing we'd be doing is to eliminate our zipper bulge. So like I said, at that point, you could either leave it straight or you could use your slightly curved ruler. We initially drew it with our slightly curved ruler, but I'll be reconnecting this point with the straight ruler for the sake of those who would want their straight. So however the case may be, it will still come out perfect and nice. So now with the aid of my straight ruler, I'll be connecting my full blouse back length into my zipper allowance. I would extend that line at the waist point. So having done this, would go ahead to eliminate our zipper bulge. So now the formula for eliminating our zipper bulge is at our waist point would be coming in by 0.5 inch at the main body. So following the line that demarcates the zipper from the main bodies, on the main bodies will go in by 0.5 inch. So now at the zipper, the starting line of our zipper would equally go in by 0.5 inch as well. So having done this, with the aid of our straight ruler, I'll be connecting from that 0.5 inch up to the upper side and into the lower side of our bodies. So both at the center front, which is the main bodies, and equally at the zipper allowance point. So please just watch what I'm doing and go ahead to replicate. So now we'll be reconnecting from that point into the lower side of our bodies. So now just like we did with the main bodies, we'll replicate same at our zipper allowance, which is exactly what I'll be doing at that point. I'll take it all the way up to our off shoulder point and all the way down to our full back blouse length. So I'll be taking it all the way down to our full back blouse length. So please watch the way I'm placing my straight ruler and go ahead to replicate same. So with this, we've successfully taken off our zipper bulge. So having done this, I'll be shading that point, which means I'll be cutting off that point. So with this, we've successfully or you've successfully eliminated your zipper bulge. It is very simple. Trust me when I say it is simple. So now, with the way the dart is at this point, you are to take this dart off directly on your fabric. But in case you do not want to take it off directly on your fabric, you have another preference, and that preference is drawing out whatever you have at your bust point into your off shoulder point. So, like we did initially, we divided our client's nipple to nipple by 2. So mine was 9 inches. So I divided the 9 inches by 2. And now at our chest point and at our off shoulder point, we'll be imputing that value following the line that demarcates the zipper from the main bodies. So now, having done that, we'll be connecting from that point into our off shoulder point for our back bodies. So if you want yours to be slashed and joined back together, you'd go ahead to replicate this. But if you would wanting to take your dart off from your main fabric, you wouldn't have to do this. So now with this, we'd have to go ahead to cut through all our points. So please watch what I'm doing and go ahead to replicate same. So now I'll be cutting through that line. Now, like I said, the straight part of our armhole point is what we'll be using. So you go ahead to discard the curve part. So like I said, you can either use the straight part or the curve part. Either way is perfect. So I'll be using the straight part. So now I'll be cutting it exactly following the curve line. So you won't be adding any excesses allowance at that point, unlike just like we did with the front bodies, but rather you'll be cutting through following the style lines and the curves. So please go ahead to replicate same. It is very, very simple. So having done that, I'll be taking off that point. So please, sorry, I didn't notice that my camera had stopped recording. So what I did was I cut off the star line at that point, separated the center front from the side front, and took off the dart lines at that point. And now I cut through all those points, eliminated our zipper bulge, which is exactly what you're seeing at this point. So if this is your end result, you've most certainly gotten it right. So at this point, if you've watched this video to this point, it most certainly means that you've gotten a value for this. So now I would have to use my marker to indicate an arrow at that point to show you that we'll be joining it back. So now at our zipper point, I'll be notching it at that point as well, so as to avoid confusion. So the notch part would be our zipper allowance, and the arrow indicated will be joining those parts back to each other, which is the center front and at the side front. So please take note, we've not added any allowances at any given point. So at this point, we'll be adding 0.5 inch both at the center front and at the side front of both the parts that we have those arrow, and we'll join it back together. So now for the zipper allowance, we've already included the zipper allowance of 1.5 inches and took out the zipper bulge. So we won't be having any need for adding any extra inch allowances at that point. So for the side of our bodies, we'd be using a value of 2 inches, which we initially did with the front body. So whatever value you use at your front bodies, you'd most certainly use the same value at your back bodies at your side front. So it is very important that it both matches up. So now for the upper side, we'll be using 0.5 inch, and at the lower side, 0.5 inches as well. So with this being said, now you remember vividly that at that point we came up by 0.5 inch at our front bodies. So we'd go ahead to replicate same at the back. So at that point, we'll be coming up by 0.5 inches, which is exactly what I'm doing now. And now with the aid of our slightly curved ruler, You can either blend it this way or you can turn it the other way around if you want to have any style line at that point. So I would prefer it the other way around. So I would place it the way I did earlier on, and I'll be connecting it into each other. So please watch what I'll be doing and go ahead to replicate same. So I'll be connecting from that point into my dart line at the side front. So ensure that you blend it properly. I'll go in with my marker and I'll go ahead to blend in that point. So having done this with the aid of my scissors, I'll be cutting through that point. So now bringing back my front bodies, like we said, we've not added any allowances at any given point. So what we'll do is, at your center front, which is where you'll be joining your bust back to each other, you'll be adding a value of 0.5 inch at those points, both at your center front and at your side front. So you'll be adding 0.5 inch at that point, and I'll be adding 0.5 inch at that point as well. So this will be on fold. So the 0.5 inch will accommodate for both the side front and the center front. So now at the side, you'll be adding the value of 2 inches, 1.5 inches, depending on what you initially used. And at that point, we'll be adding 0.5 inches all the way around. And at the lower side, we'll be adding 0.5 inches as well. So please take notes. Go ahead to add whatever value that you want to. And whatever value that you add at the front bodies, please ensure to add same at your back bodies. It is very important and crucial that all points align. So to my amazing soulmates, if you've watched this video to this point, please share, like, and hit on the subscription button to always get notified whenever we post a new video. Thank you and see you on my next video. Bye.